Hello everybody and welcome to another Twilight Zone retro review. Today it is Season 1 Episode 7 entitled The Lonely. Once again written by Rod Serling and starring Jack Warden as James Corey and Jean Marsh as Alicia. More on her in a little bit. So the main premise of this episode is pretty interesting, and I would also argue this is probably the first Twilight Zone episode that really delves more into science fiction than it does fantasy. So the main plot overview is that a convicted criminal is exiled on an asteroid after he is convicted, and he's basically all by himself up there to carry out his sentence. He is visited every 3 months with supplies by a man named Allenby and his crew. And I gotta tell you, one of the guys, his name is Adams, that's with Allenby. He's kind of a jerk. I'm not sure what other word to use. And anyway, he's excited because this is the only time he sees people. So Allenby explains they can only stay a very short time this time because of their orbital position, which is kind of strange and interesting. And they also talk about how there's a controversy over the penalty and whether they should be doing this to people or not. But that's kind of interesting. I would have liked a little bit more on that because they don't really get into it that deeply, but that's kind of interesting how I wonder how that kind of penalty would go over putting people in exile. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, Corey says he's losing it. He doesn't know how much longer he's going to last being there by himself. And before Allenby leaves, he tells him he brought him a gift. And after Allenby goes, Corey opens the gift, and it is a female robot named Alicia. It is explained that Alicia has emotions, memory, and feelings just like human beings, that she's basically just like a human, only she's built a different way, obviously, than a human being is. And his first reaction is that he's upset about it. He says he doesn't need her help. I guess he just feels weird because she's a robot. I wonder if someone's reaction would be different today than it was back at that time period about something like this. He seems a little harsh at first to me about this, but maybe people knew very little about artificial intelligence back then, and that's kind of where this attitude comes from. But after he really lays into her one day, she starts crying, and he starts to warm up to her. So time goes by. They say 11 months has gone by, and it appears that Allenby and Alicia are now getting along, or Corey and Alicia, are getting along very well. And they're looking up in the sky one night, and they see a ship coming. And Corey finds that weird because he knows Allenby isn't due for quite a while yet. So Allenby and his men come down and tell him that he has been pardoned. But the problem is he can only take 15 pounds of stuff back with him, and obviously Alicia is a lot heavier than that. Well, now the moral dilemma of the episode starts, and Corey argues that Alicia is human and needs to be brought back, while Allenby reminds him that she's just a robot made out of parts. She doesn't really have human functions. So ultimately what happens is Corey refuses to leave without Alicia, and he runs off. Allenby follows him and basically shoots her, and her face falls off, and it is shown that she is a robot. And Corey goes back knowing that she was only a robot, but that she helped him get through his loneliness. Now, some of my thoughts on this episode in general. It's amazing how far ahead of its time in some respects Twilight Zone was. Sure, some of the science isn't all perfect, and some of the stories seem simplistic by today's, more advanced age, but you have to remember that for a story to tackle whether a robot has human rights or not back at this time was something to behold, and it is an interesting dilemma. And they don't really give you a definitive answer, which I kind of like. is a robot that can feel and think. Is that a living thing, and does it have rights, or doesn't it? And that's basically the premise of this episode. It also talks a lot about man's isolation away from the rest of civilization and what that can do to a person. So overall, this is another very good episode, very thought-provoking. I am going to give it a 4 out of 5 rating. So a 4 out of 5 for The Lonely. Another excellent episode in early Season 1 Twilight Zone. Thanks for watching. Bye.